I've always believed in building something for myself. That's exactly what I did when I started my catering business. What began as a modest food truck back in my college days gradually evolved into a full-service catering company. Now, I employ over 50 people and service high-end events all across the greater Chicago area. It took sleepless nights, sacrifices, and relentless determination. Nearly a decade, but I built something I'm proud of. This background is important to understand what happened last weekend at my younger brother Alex's wedding. It turned into an absolute disaster. To give some context, I haven't been on speaking terms with my family for nearly 6 years. My mom passed away when I was 16, and my dad remarried within a year to Helen, my now stepmother. Helen made it clear from day one that she wanted no reminder of my mother. My father, eager to move on, allowed her to push my mother's memory out of our lives. This created a lot of tension between us. Alex, who was only 12 at the time, became very close to Helen, but I struggled to accept her sudden, controlling presence in our home. The distance between my father and me started then. The real breaking point came during my college years. While I was juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay for school, my father refused to offer me any financial help, claiming I needed to learn responsibility. Meanwhile, he was fully funding Alex's education at an expensive private university. The difference in how we were treated was impossible to ignore. Helen, who had a condescending attitude towards me, never missed an opportunity to belittle my efforts. While I was trying to build my catering business, she often referred to it as playing with a food truck, while praising Alex's real career in finance. After college, I rarely contacted them. I would show up for holidays, but that was about it. The final straw came 6 years ago when I learned that my father and Helen had sold our childhood home without informing me. I only found out after they had moved into a new place, and by then, all of my mother's remaining belongings, things I had wanted to keep, were gone. When I confronted my father about this, he told me I was being overly emotional and needed to move on with my life. That was the moment I decided to go no contact. Fast forward to last month. I unexpectedly received a formal invitation to Alex's wedding. Along with the invite was a handwritten note from him saying that he missed me and wanted to repair our relationship. After a lot of thought, I decided to give it a chance. Despite our family history, I figured it was worth attending. I even offered to provide the catering for the wedding at a significant discount as a gesture of goodwill, but Alex politely declined, saying they had already booked another company. I was a little hurt, but I shrugged it off. The wedding was held at a beautiful venue in Lake Forest. I arrived cautiously optimistic. Alex seemed genuinely happy to see me, which was a relief. But Helen's attitude hadn't changed. The moment she saw me, she made snide comments about my appearance and my catering business. I brushed it off and tried to enjoy the ceremony, which was undeniably beautiful. However, the family seating arrangement was telling. I was placed at a table far from my immediate family, alongside distant cousins I barely knew. It felt like a subtle reminder that I was still an outsider. Things took a nosedive during the reception. My father, clearly drunk, approached my table and started berating me out of nowhere. He accused me of showing up uninvited, despite the formal invitation I had in my pocket, and loudly claimed I was an embarrassment to the family. He said my presence was ruining Alex's big day, and before I could even respond, Helen chimed in, asking with thinly veiled sarcasm how much I was earning playing restaurant owner these days. She even commented on my suit, implying I couldn't afford something as nice as what I was wearing. The sheer audacity of it was unbelievable. Instead of saying anything or reacting at all, I decided to leave quietly. I knew there was no point in engaging with them, especially with my father being drunk and Helen clearly enjoying the opportunity to take jabs at me. As I was walking towards my car, something caught my eye. The catering staff setting up for the main course. I recognized several of them immediately. These were people who worked for me. That's when it hit me. The catering company my business partner had hired for the wedding had recently been acquired by my company. The former owner had stayed on as a manager, so I hadn't been directly involved in the planning. But legally, the company and this event were now under my control. I called my operations manager just to confirm what I was already suspecting. Sure enough, this was our event. I thought back to what my father had said, how I was an embarrassment, how I was ruining the wedding just by being there. And that's when I made a decision. If my presence was so offensive to them, then surely they wouldn't want my company catering their event either. I instructed my staff to pack everything up and leave immediately. Within 15 minutes, 25 of my employees had loaded all the food, equipment, and supplies back into our trucks and were on their way out. Chaos erupted shortly after. With 300 guests left without their main course or dessert, people started to realize something was seriously wrong. My father tried to intervene, but there was nothing he could do. The contract they signed with the previous owner of the catering company included a clause that allowed us to terminate service if there was any hostile or discriminatory behavior towards our staff or ownership, and that's exactly what had happened. I left my business card with the venue manager and told her to have my father contact my lawyer if there were any disputes over payment. The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with messages from family members accusing me of being selfish and petty. Alex sent me a long text saying I had ruined his wedding and proved Helen right about me all along. My father, unsurprisingly, threatened to sue me for breach of contract. I forwarded all of their communications to my lawyer and blocked their numbers. A couple of hours later, I started hearing from some guests who had attended the wedding. Surprisingly, several of them were on my side. They had witnessed the way my father and Helen had treated me and said they were appalled by their behavior. One of Alex's friends, who had seen my catering company's work before, even reached out to apologize for how things had played out and said he was impressed with how quickly and professionally my team handled the situation. This support was unexpected, but it reminded me that not everyone in the family was blind to what had really happened. As the days passed, I found out that Alex's wedding had made the rounds in social circles, particularly how it ended. Apparently, word had spread among Alex's colleagues and friends about the drama that unfolded, and it wasn't long before Helen's carefully curated image started to crack. Some mutual acquaintances even mentioned that Helen had tried to downplay the whole incident, blaming me entirely for ruining the reception. However, the truth was already out, and no one was buying her version of events. The damage had been done. I've been thinking about everything that's happened, and honestly, I don't feel guilty. I didn't crash their wedding or make a scene. I was invited and treated with utter disrespect. They chose to humiliate me, and I exercised my legal right to terminate a service. It was nothing personal, just business. They didn't want me there, so they didn't get my service either. Simple as that. Still, I can't shake the feeling that I've somehow been drawn back into a family drama that I had long hoped to leave behind. Now I'm left wondering if I handled it the right way. Was it too much? Or did they deserve the outcome they got for treating me the way they did? Either way, the situation has been weighing on me, so I'm turning to Reddit for some perspective. Did I go too far? Or was I justified in my actions? Thank you all for the overwhelming support. Honestly, I didn't expect this story to blow up the way it has, but I'm grateful for the outpouring of kind words and thoughtful responses. The amount of comments and messages I've received has been staggering, and while I've tried to respond to as many as possible, it's been overwhelming. I truly appreciate everyone's feedback, and many of your perspectives have given me new angles to consider in this whole ordeal. A lot of people have asked about the legal side of things, and whether or not my father and Helen are really planning to take action against me. The short answer is yes, they threatened to sue, just as I suspected. Here's what has happened since my original post. Right after the wedding fiasco, I contacted my lawyer to get ahead of any potential legal trouble. We went over the contract between my catering company and the previous owner of the business, which was signed by either Alex or his wedding planner. The good news is that the contract is rock solid. It contains a clause that allows us to terminate services in cases where there's any hostile or discriminatory behavior directed at our staff or ownership. That clause was specifically added for situations like this, where things could get out of hand. To make sure we were fully prepared, I reached out to the venue manager, who confirmed that their security cameras had captured everything. The footage clearly shows my father approaching me, and while the audio wasn't perfect, it picked up enough to verify that he was berating me. Helen's snide remarks were also caught on camera, making it clear that their behavior was hostile enough to justify the decision to stop catering the event. With this evidence in hand, I felt confident that my legal standing was solid. A few days after the wedding, my lawyer sent a formal letter to my father's attorney explaining the situation. We laid out the details, emphasizing that the contract allowed us to terminate services due to their hostile behavior. We even mentioned the video evidence and made it clear that we were more than willing to provide it if necessary. At first, I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, I underestimated how stubborn and vengeful Helen could be. Yesterday, my father's lawyer sent a response demanding a full refund for the catering. They also threatened to sue for damages, claiming that by pulling the catering, I had ruined the wedding and caused irreparable harm. They were seeking compensation not only for the catering, but also for the disruption caused to the entire event. Naturally, I wasn't about to cave into their demands. I wasn't going to pay them anything, especially since they were the ones who had created this mess in the first place. After discussing things with my lawyer, we decided to offer a counter-proposal. We're willing to refund 50% of the deposit, but only under two conditions. First, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, which means they can't talk about the situation publicly or leave negative reviews online. Second, they have to sign a release of claims, which would prevent them from pursuing any further legal action against me or my company. We sent the offer, and now we're just waiting for their response. Despite all this legal wrangling, Helen has already tried to cause problems. The venue manager called me a few days ago to let me know that Helen had been attempting to post negative reviews about my catering company online. In her reviews, she claimed that we had sabotaged the wedding and blown things out of proportion to make the family look bad. Thankfully, the venue manager was able to block her attempts, but it's still frustrating to deal with. My legal team is keeping a close eye on the situation, and if Helen continues to spread false information, we'll treat it as defamation and escalate accordingly. Interestingly enough, the chaos of the wedding has led to some unexpected positives for my business. Several wedding guests have since reached out to compliment how my staff handled the situation and even expressed interest in hiring us for their own events. Some of them told me they were impressed by how quickly and professionally my team packed up and left. It's strange to think that a disaster like this could lead to new business opportunities, but that seems to be the silver lining in all this. As for my brother Alex, he still hasn't contacted me directly, but he did send a message through one of our mutual cousins. In the message, Alex admitted that he felt guilty for not standing up for me during the wedding. He said that he didn't want to cause problems with our father and Helen, which is why he stayed silent when things got ugly. He apologized and asked if we could meet to talk things over. I have mixed feelings about this. Part of me wants to give him a chance to explain, but another part of me feels like it's too late for that. For now, I'm going to hold off on any meetings until the legal situation is fully resolved. On a personal level, I've been reflecting a lot on everything that's happened. In some ways, I feel vindicated for standing up for myself. My family had treated me like an outsider for years, and I finally drew a line in the sand. Legally and professionally, I know I made the right decisions. But emotionally, this whole situation has been draining. It's hard not to feel a sense of loss. Even though I've been estranged from my father and Helen for years, Alex's wedding was supposed to be a celebration, and instead, it's become a legal battle and a source of family drama that I never wanted. The weight of it all is starting to sink in. I'm left wondering what the long-term consequences will be for my relationships with the rest of my family. Will things ever get back to normal? Can I ever repair my relationship with Alex, or is the damage too deep? I don't have answers to those questions yet, and it's going to take some time to figure it all out. For now, I'm focused on seeing how my father and Helen respond to our offer. If they agree to the NDA and the release of claims, maybe we can all move on from this mess. If they refuse and decide to push forward with legal action, I'm prepared to defend myself and my company. No matter what happens, I'll make sure to update you all again. Thank you for all your support and encouragement. It means a lot to me, especially during this chaotic and stressful time. Since my last update, things have only gotten messier, but at least the legal side is now behind me. Before diving into that, let me backtrack a little to fill you in on something I recently learned. One of my business associates, who had a working relationship with the wedding planner hired by Alex and Helen, gave me some additional insights into what went down before the wedding. Apparently, the chaos didn't just start with my arrival, it had been brewing for weeks. According to my associate, Helen had been a nightmare to deal with from the beginning. She insisted on making several last-minute changes to the flower arrangements, despite having already signed off on them. Not only that, but she went back and forth with the event planner over almost every detail. The wedding cake design was altered at least 3 times because Helen couldn't make up her mind, and she even demanded a complete overhaul of the seating arrangement just days before the event. The event planner had to rearrange seating for over 300 guests more than once, which isn't just inconvenient, it's costly. On top of that, there were some serious tensions between Helen and the venue staff. Helen apparently made several condescending remarks about their level of professionalism, complaining that they weren't up to the standard she expected for such an upscale wedding. This was ironic, considering the staff were some of the best in the business, and the venue was known for its top-notch service. Helen also tried to get the band to play a different set list at the last minute, even though Alex and his fiancée had personally chosen all the songs months in advance. It was one of those classic situations where Helen had her hands in everything, making the planning process a nightmare for everyone involved. My associate told me that there were some moments leading up to the wedding where it looked like the event planner was on the verge of quitting because of Helen's constant meddling and impossible demands. But being the professional she is, the planner stuck it out despite the emotional toll Helen's behavior was taking on the entire team. When my associate told me this, I couldn't help but feel a little vindicated. The stress and confusion I'd felt at the wedding reception were clearly just the tip of the iceberg compared to what the vendors had been dealing with in the weeks leading up to it. Now, back to the legal matters. Yesterday, my father's lawyer finally contacted us, and they've agreed to accept our settlement offer. After what I assume was a long discussion between my father, Helen, and their legal team, they decided to take the partial refund and sign the non-disclosure agreement, NDA. This morning, they signed all the necessary documents, and we processed the refund, 50% of their deposit, minus the costs already incurred for the food, staff, and travel. With that, the legal dispute has been resolved. The lawyer's letter was formal, and they didn't bother to include any sort of apology or acknowledgement of what really happened, but I wasn't expecting one. The important thing is that they agreed to the settlement, and I won't have to worry about any further legal repercussions from them. However, while the legal matter may be over, the personal fallout is still ongoing, and it's only getting worse. One of the more disturbing developments is that Helen has been actively trying to undermine my business since the wedding. She's been calling several of my employees, trying to fish for information about how my company operates. Thankfully, my staff are loyal and know better than to engage with her, especially considering the circumstances. We've instructed all employees to direct any and all communications from my family straight to our legal department. But it doesn't stop there. Helen has also been reaching out to some of my business partners on LinkedIn, spreading false claims about my character and accusing me of ruining her son's wedding on purpose. It's one thing to be angry, but it's another to try to sabotage someone's livelihood. Helen crossed a major line with these attempts to tarnish my reputation. As soon as we became aware of what she was doing, our lawyer sent her a cease and desist letter. We're taking this seriously because, at this point, her actions are bordering on defamation. My legal team is ready to escalate if necessary, but I'm hoping the cease and desist will be enough to make her back off. Still, I wouldn't put it past Helen to keep pushing, given her history of crossing boundaries. But perhaps the most surprising development came from my brother Alex. I hadn't expected much from him after the wedding, but it seems the fallout from the incident has hit his own marriage as well. From what I've gathered through mutual acquaintances and a few cousins, Alex and his new wife have already had their first major fight over what happened at the wedding. Apparently, she was horrified by the way our father and Helen treated me, and she confronted Alex about it after the wedding. She told Alex in no uncertain terms that he should have stood up for me, and that allowing his father and stepmother to humiliate me was unacceptable. According to what I've heard, she feels strongly that Alex needs to grow a spine and stand up to our father and Helen. This led to a significant argument between them, to the point where they postponed their honeymoon to work through some of those issues. I don't know much more than that, but it's clear that my brother is being forced to face the reality of the situation, and that includes re-examining his relationship with our father and Helen. I can't help but feel a strange mix of emotions about this. On one hand, it's a relief to know that someone else saw what happened for what it truly was. It's validating to hear that Alex's wife was just as appalled as I was by our father and Helen's behavior. But on the other hand, I feel bad for Alex. He's in a tough spot, and while I'm angry with him for not standing up for me, I know he's been under a lot of pressure from our family for years. It's not an excuse, but it's still a difficult position to be in, especially now that he's newly married and trying to navigate this mess. As for me, I'm focusing on moving forward. With the legal matters behind me and Helen's attempts to sabotage my business being handled by my legal team, I'm starting to feel a sense of closure. I'm not sure what the future holds for my relationship with Alex or the rest of the family, but I'm taking things one day at a time. For now, I am just grateful for the support I've received from my staff, my business partners, and even some family members who've reached out in private to offer their encouragement. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens, but for now, I'm hopeful that this chapter is coming to a close. Thanks again for all the support. Update 3. Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for all the support, comments, and messages I've received since I first shared my story. The past week has been truly transformative, and I want to share how things have evolved and the unexpected turns my life has taken since my last update. Yesterday, I met with Alex for coffee. It was a kind of emotional meetup that I wasn't entirely sure I was ready for, but I felt it was necessary. The conversation was a long time coming, and I think we both knew it. Alex broke down and apologized for years of enabling Helen's behavior and our father's favoritism. He was visibly shaken, and I could see how much he was carrying on his shoulders. I always knew Alex loved me, but hearing him admit that he had been complicit in allowing Helen to dictate our family dynamics was a huge step. Alex revealed that Helen had been controlling their family dynamics through financial manipulation for years. He disclosed that she convinced our father to put most of their assets in her name, which included partial ownership of Alex's condo. Alex had no idea this was happening, and he felt blindsided. It explained a lot about the tension between them. He was frustrated that he had been living under this facade, believing he had some control over his life when in reality, Helen was orchestrating everything. Now that he's aware of it, he's working with a financial advisor to regain his independence. I was proud of him for taking this step. It showed he was ready to make changes in his life. During our coffee meeting, Alex also told me about a breakthrough with his wife. She contacted me privately later that day to share some good news. They're going to couples counseling. It seems Alex is finally finding his voice and standing up to Helen in a way he never did before. They are actively looking for a new condo, one that will be solely in their names, not tied to Helen in any way. This was a huge relief to hear. It sounds like they're setting boundaries and taking back control over their lives, which is a journey I hope continues for both of them. Additionally, Alex's wife mentioned that they're planning a small vow renewal ceremony in a few months. This ceremony will have different in-laws seated at the family table, meaning they're taking active steps to redefine what family looks like for them. Hearing this warmed my heart. It seems they are committed to building a new family narrative that doesn't include the toxicity that Helen and my father have brought into our lives. As for Helen and my father, they've surprisingly gone quiet since signing the NDA. Through some mutual acquaintances, I've learned that they are facing social consequences in their country club circle. Apparently, they had been telling a very different version of our family story to their friends, painting me as the villain. Now it seems that people are starting to question their narrative, and the consequences of their actions are catching up to them. It's strange to think that the social standing they valued so much is now in jeopardy because of their own behavior. The entire experience has taught me a lot about the importance of setting boundaries with toxic family members. Sometimes the hardest decisions, like maintaining those boundaries or standing up for your principles, are the right ones, even when they cause short-term chaos. I've come to realize that standing firm in my truth, despite the backlash, has led to unexpected growth and healing in other relationships. I'm grateful for the community support. Many of you have reached out to share your own experiences with toxic family dynamics, and it's comforting to know I'm not alone in this. I hope my story can help others facing similar situations. I've realized that life is too short for toxic relationships, but it's never too late for genuine reconciliation with those who are truly sorry. Looking ahead, I plan to maintain my boundaries with Helen and my father. They've shown me who they truly are, and I have no desire to re-enter that dynamic. However, I'm cautiously optimistic about rebuilding relationships with Alex and other family members who are willing to interact respectfully. I think there's a chance for us to reconnect, especially since Alex is now aware of the need for healthier boundaries. As for my business, things are going better than I could have anticipated. In the wake of the wedding incident, I've had several inquiries from potential clients who were impressed with how we handled the chaos. Our reputation is actually strengthened in the local community, and we're experiencing a surge in bookings as a result. It feels rewarding to know that my hard work over the years is paying off, and that I'm being recognized for the dedication I've put into my company. I also took the time to meet with my employees to discuss the incident. I wanted to ensure they felt supported and acknowledged for their professionalism during a challenging event. The feedback from them was heartwarming. Many expressed their appreciation for the strong company culture we built together, which made me feel proud as a leader. It reinforced my belief in the importance of treating employees well and fostering a positive workplace environment. To those who asked about future family events, I'll continue to maintain my boundaries with Helen and my father, but I'm excited to explore the possibility of re-establishing connections with Alex and other family members ready to interact respectfully. It's a fine line to walk, but I'm hopeful. Life is too short for toxic relationships, and I want to focus on the positive connections that bring joy and support into my life. Thank you all for your unwavering support, awards, and kind messages. They've meant more to me than you know. I might not post updates moving forward, but I wanted to share this final update to let you know how things have changed for the better. I hope you all take care and remember that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. You never know how it might inspire others to do the same. Story 2. I always knew I was second best as a child. I'm the younger daughter, and my name is Isabella, although everyone calls me Bella. And what did your normal middle-class family look like? The golden kid was my sister, Catherine Katie, who was 3 years my senior. She had the good fortune to have naturally blonde hair that appeared to capture the sun perfectly in every picture. Mom never missed a chance to photograph her ideal angel for social media or the family album. I was anything from unattractive. My aunt described me as having an intriguing face, hazel eyes, and my own type of lovely black hair. However, fascinating wasn't enough in our home. I was recently there, and Katie was the norm. The partiality was overt. When I needed something, we would spend whole weekends at the mall while Katie got new outfits. See you next month, my love. Because she needed more area to study, Katie was given the larger bedroom. On her 16th birthday, she received an automobile. I purchased a watch for myself. Not even a very pleasant one. The real kicker was when we each graduated from high school. Our parents hosted a huge celebration for Katie's graduation. Dad said with pride that they will cover the cost of her college education. She intended to pursue a career as a bank manager. Everyone joined him in toasting to her promising future. I graduated 3 years later with grades that were even higher than Katie's. I can vividly picture myself seated at our kitchen table. In front of me, as I watched my parents exchange awkward looks, were college acceptance letters. Sweetheart. Mom began to look away from me. We just do not now have the funds for college. Due to Katie's tuition and the challenging market, Dad got in. Perhaps you might save up some cash by working for a year or two. I was struck into silence as I sat there. The same parents who had recently purchased a new laptop for Katie's college studies were claiming they were unable to pay for my education. I sobbed myself to sleep that night, but I would never again weep for their partiality. I began looking for a job the next morning. In less than a month, I was hired as a maid at our city's most upscale hotel, the Grand Plaza. I moved into a modest studio apartment across town, while Katie, after graduating from college, went back home to save money, she claimed. Although it was difficult at first, living alone is preferable to remaining at home and seeing Katie enjoy our parents' unending attention. Even though my flat was simple, it was mine. Knowing that I was surviving on my own gave me a sense of satisfaction every night when I arrived home from work, fatigued. While some of the other maids at the Grand Plaza Hotel grumbled about the demanding visitors and the never-ending rooms to clean, I immersed myself into my work. I viewed every assignment as a chance to get first-hand knowledge of the hotel industry. The only person who routinely receives flawless room inspection results is you, Bella. After just 3 months, the head housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, informed me. How is it done? I just made an effort to consider what I would want if I were staying here. I straightened my uniform and answered. I was promoted to head maid within 6 months. I initially met him at that time. The visitor in room 742 is James Richardson. He was likely in his mid-40s, well-dressed, with fine clothes and salt and pepper hair. One morning, when I was overseeing the cleanup of the mess on the 7th level, I observed him observing me. He yelled, "Is it possible to speak?" A brief inquiry about additional towels evolved into a 15-minute discussion on hotel management. He happened to run into me again the next day, as well as the subsequent one. On his 5th day at the hotel, he casually offered that he join me for dinner tonight. There's a great restaurant downtown that I know of. I stood with my shoulders straight and met his gaze. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Richardson. However, I must clarify. If you want a short-term somewhere to stay while you're there, I have no interest in it. Rather than take offense, he laughed. All right. However, my invitation is still valid. Only dinner, not much more. I strongly but courteously rejected. For the rest of his 3-week visit, he remained cordial yet courteous. He left me a business card with his number on the day he checked out. I put it away, assuming that was the end of it. After 2 weeks, things began to change. First, I received an opportunity to work at the front desk after being summoned to the hotel manager's office. A big promotion. I was promoted to leader of the registration team before I had a chance to adjust to my new position. I was promoted to assistant manager of the front office a few weeks later. After Mr. Richardson left, I was promoted to manager of the entire front office within 2 months. Even though I knew I was skilled at my career, the speed at which I was progressing made my head spin. It nearly felt too fantastic to be true. Shortly after, the murmurs began. She's probably having an affair with Mr. Blackwood. I heard one of the receptionists mention our motel owner to another. Did you notice how quickly she rose? You know, no one gets promoted so fast without. I made an effort to disregard the rumors, but they are now public. I had put a lot of effort into every marketing, stayed up late, and became well-versed in every facet of the business. People, however, believed that I had slept my way to the top. Actually, I didn't even really get to meet Mr. Blackwood, much less have an affair with him. Mr. Blackwood's secretary called to arrange a meeting one Monday morning. I felt sick to my stomach. Usually, these unplanned encounters were a sign of trouble. At exactly 2 p.m., I knocked on the door of his office. Enter. Bella. He yelled, "Have a seat, please, Mr. Blackwood," a tall guy in his 60s, with kind eyes that seemed to be assessing something at all times. He looked up at me after rearranging some papers on his desk. "You did a great job here," he said. "But we have to talk about something. A college degree in hospitality administration, or a similar discipline, is usually required for front office manager positions." My heart fell. It was right here. At last, they had recognized my lack of qualifications for the position. "It's probably time for you to start college." "Bella?" Bewildered, I blinked. "I apologize. The hotel will accommodate your timetable. Naturally, we want you to continue working here while earning your degree." My head was whirling. I had not anticipated this at all. I stumbled. "I don't know what to say. Thank you. However, why?" Grinning, he opened his desk drawer. "I don't usually listen to outside counsel when it comes to hiring choices, but in your instance, a close friend advised that I do." He slipped a business card across the desk after taking it out. "Call this number if you want to know why your career has just taken such an exciting turn." My breath caught as I took up the card. Mr. Richardson had given me the same number months prior. I sat in my apartment that night and looked at the card for an hour before I picked up my phone. I phoned with trembling hands. I wanted to know when you would call." The second ring was answered by that same voice. "You. Do you and Mr. Blackwood have a friendship?" I was able to inquire. James laughed. "We've been friends for 30 years. He has faith in my ability to recognize talent. Therefore, each of these promotions was obtained." He made a deep cut. "I only advised him to consider your potential. You did everything you accomplished on your own initiative." That night, we spoke for hours on end. He described how he had observed my work while he was there and was struck by my attention to detail and innate leadership skills. Something about me reminded him of himself in his younger years. That determination to succeed in spite of all obstacles. He had invited me to the same restaurant 2 months prior, and we went there for dinner 2 days later. I said yes this time. The next week, I started college and declared hotel and restaurant management as my major. James was there for me at every turn. Helps me study practically as well as emotionally. Describing his experience in business, teaching me stuff I couldn't learn from a textbook. Our bond grew organically. There was no dramatic moment when everything changed, no romantic gesture of grandeur. We just got closer every day until it felt as natural as breathing to be together. He said to move in with him. One evening, 6 months after that first phone contact, we were sitting on his penthouse balcony, looking out over the city lights. A month later, we were married in a short but exquisite ceremony, and I moved from my little studio into his opulent penthouse apartment. "Girl, you hit the jackpot," my buddy Sarah screamed over coffee one afternoon. "Successful, gorgeous, and truly pleasant. Those types of men aren't meant to exist." I chuckled, but she wasn't incorrect. James was all I could have wished for in a marriage. He encouraged my schooling, acknowledged my work successes, and made me feel appreciated, something I'd never experienced growing up. Family get-togethers were, to put it mildly, interesting because of my newfound contentment. It was difficult for Katie, who had always been the center of attention, to hold a man's attention for longer than a few weeks. She was having a successful job at the bank. Although she had achieved the position of assistant manager, her personal life was in disarray. During holiday feasts, I would find Grandma looking at James and me. Envy, scarcely disguised, flooded her gaze. Previously ignoring me until she needed something, the same sister now couldn't stop observing my every action. "Did you notice that Katie spent the whole Christmas dinner staring at your ring?" Later, James asked me. I was afraid she was going to use her eyes to pierce it. Having the finest of everything has always been a habit of hers. I let out a sigh. She doesn't seem to know how to cope with no longer being the focus of attention. When my parents began their effort to get Katie married off, things became much more difficult. At every family get-together, Mom would corner me. When she needed something, she would say, "Sweetheart," in that sugary way. James must have some good buddies, surely. Ones that are alone. You know, Katie isn't getting any younger. Dad was blunter. James is the kind of accomplished person your sister deserves. You ought to assist her. Family is what it is. I didn't miss the irony. My favorite daughter's parents, who were unable to get funding for my schooling, were now attempting to take advantage of my connections. James must have a large network of qualified business people. At Easter dinner, Katie herself cornered me in the kitchen and said, "One day, why haven't you shown any of them to me?" I actually gave my sister my whole attention. Her flawless golden hair remained, but I had never seen such a desperate edge in her eyes. Perhaps it's because I don't want to be in charge of other people's romantic lives. I gave a thoughtful response. Furthermore, meeting a wealthy person isn't the only goal of partnerships. "Katie," she yelled, "easy for you to say. You have the wealthy hubby already." I knew I had made the proper decision to keep my distance as I left that conversation. I was uneasy with Katie's approach to finding a rich man for some reason. She seemed to be searching for a reward, rather than seeking affection. I believed that I had at last discovered my happily ever after. On the surface, it appeared like I was correct during the following 2 years, but things started to alter gradually, almost subtly at first. Little things were the first. James started arriving home from work later and later. His work excursions, which used to be sporadic, became more regular. At first, I made justifications for him in my thoughts. He was busy. He was needed by the firm. This was only a short-term stage. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. A board meeting in emergency." He would text if he didn't have supper. I got ready. He would hardly glance up from his phone as he said, "This trip might take 2 weeks instead of 1. The more days went by, the more empty our house felt. I spent a lot of time alone in our rooftop apartment, and the sound of my heels reverberated throughout. I finally determined one evening that enough was enough. Determining to have an honest discussion about what was happening to us, I waited for him to wake up. "We must speak, James." When he entered at 11 p.m., I remarked. He gave me a look I had never seen him make before. Chilly. Remote. Almost irritated. "Indeed we do." The incident that followed seemed to be from someone else's life rather than mine. He stated bluntly, as though he were talking about the weather, "I want a divorce. I no longer love you." To be honest, I don't think I ever did. It seemed as though someone had hit me in the gut. "What? If there's a problem, James, we can fix it. Nothing needs to be worked on. Bella, it's finished. My attorney will contact you." After then, everything happened at warp speed. I received divorce papers within a few days. I had no claim to anything because of the prenuptial agreement I had signed, which I had assumed was only a formality. Nor his money, nor the apartment, not even the furnishings we selected in a fog. With nowhere else to go, I crammed my personal belongings and clothes into 3 bags. I gave my parents a call. "I have to spend some time with you, Mom and Dad." "Until I figure things out," I answered, trying not to crack my voice. I should have understood everything from the stillness on the other end. "Oh, sweetheart." There was a hint of fake pity in Mom's words. "We are currently undergoing renovations. The guest room is in utter disarray." I proposed to sleep on the couch. Dad, you see, jumped right in. "The living room is also being painted. You are also aware of this house's tiny size." Each of their justifications was more obvious than the one before it. The barely disguised joy in their tones was the most painful thing. In fact, they were pleased that I had fallen from favor. I attempted to immerse myself in my job after finding a little flat across town, but all of a sudden, nothing was happening there either. All of my reports were returned with revisions. Every choice I made was scrutinized. At last, I was summoned to Mr. Blackwood's office. The man who had supported my career was now unable to look me in the eye. He shuffled papers on his desk and murmured, "Bella, you might be better off thinking about alternative options. We are pleased to offer a reference." After losing everything for a month, depression struck me hard. I hardly got out of bed. My family's silence was deafening. Not even an SMS to see if I was still alive, not even a call. Sarah is a blessing. Rise. One morning, she stormed into my flat with bagels and coffee and demanded, "I don't recognize this Bella." There was a life for the Bella you knew. I whispered to my pillow, "No." She pulled open my curtains. I know a Bella who is a warrior, the person who began her career as a maid and rose to the position of manager, the one who worked a full-time job and attended college. Somewhere. Is that Bella still there? Thank heavens. I had always handled money carefully. I had saved money on my own from years of working and living below my means, even with the prenuptial agreement. At least I had learned one valuable lesson from James. Have a backup plan at all times. I stared at my ceiling one restless night. I was struck. I was well versed in the hotel industry. From running the front desk to cleaning the restrooms, I had done it all. I was aware of what worked, what didn't, and, above all, what the visitors truly want. I intend to start my own hotel. The following morning at breakfast, I told Sarah. Her coffee almost suffocated her. It's ambitious. Although I have funds set out for launch expenses, I will require investors. My phone is already compiling lists, and I am certain of the type of hotel I want to build, I remarked. I started networking at a charity event for aspiring company owners, wrote a thorough business plan, and poured myself into my research. My idea for a boutique hotel that would blend luxury and individualized service was adored by 2 investors I met. It was a terrible first year. I filled in for every position when necessary, handled reception during the day, and completed paperwork at night. When my maid got the sick, I once had to take care of the house for 3 days. However, Each tiresome time seemed different. I was constructing something for myself this time. The hotel started to make money gradually. Word got around about our meticulous attention to detail and individualized service. By the 3rd year, we were making money. By the 5th year, I had fully repaid my investors and owned the hotel. All this time, my family didn't say anything. It seemed as though I had never been since they had so thoroughly shut me out of their lives. No more family get-togethers, no more Christmas invitations. It was painful at first, but I eventually came to see it as a blessing. Without them, there would be no more subtle put-downs, comparisons, or feelings that I wasn't good enough. Every now and again, I checked Katie's social media accounts. I suppose old habits die hard. I found out that she had finally found a wealthy man and had a child as a result. She frequently shared pictures of exotic holidays and high-end baby outfits on social media. She appeared to have everything she had ever desired. The 2 years went by in a blur. In addition to its success, the hotel had established itself as the city's preferred lodging option for tourists looking for opulence with a unique flair. Travel bloggers frequently highlighted us in their posts, complimenting our distinctive style of hospitality. We ought to take some action to support the community. One morning, I shared something bank with my management team. That's how our first charity gala came to be. We gathered local celebrities, business executives, and the media, and we turned the hotel's magnificent ballroom into a sparkling paradise. The purpose of the event was to gather funds for educational scholarships for youngsters from disadvantaged backgrounds, adapting. Considering my personal educational background, it was a huge success, the gala. It was shown on local television channels. Online news outlets published articles on the hotel's owner's journey from poverty to wealth, and all of a sudden, I was in the news. My front desk manager gave my office a call 3 days later. "Your parents are in the lobby, Miss Bennett. They're very determined to see you. They swear they won't leave until you come down." I took a deep breath, fixed my suit jacket, and proceeded to the lobby. There they were, Mom and Dad, looking older, but just as entitled as ever. "Bella." Mom moved forward for an embrace I cleverly evaded. "Why are you here?" I asked coldly. Are parents unable to wish to get back in touch with their daughter? Dad made an effort to sound offended. "We have witnessed your achievement. We're really pleased." Feeling proud, I gave a sour laugh. "When I needed a place to stay following my divorce, you weren't proud. For the 7 years you didn't bother to call, you were proud. It's water under the bridge." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Family should keep together in terrible times. Speaking of which," her voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, "Katie's going through such a terrible phase. Her lover left her, and now she's all alone with the baby. He won't pay any child support. You could certainly assist your sister. It may have been morbid curiosity, or simply a need for closure, but I had to beg for something. What specifically do you want me to do to assist Katie?" Mom's eyes brightened, as if she had discovered a gap. "You may speak with the father of her child. Help him comprehend. He must provide for his child." I couldn't contain my laughter. Why would this man pay attention to me? He's not even someone I know. "Bella, don't be evasive." Dad lost his temper. "You know James, of course. After all, he was your spouse." The globe momentarily ceased to revolve. Abruptly, with nauseating clarity, the puzzle pieces fell into place. My parents spoke distantly about my sister's enigmatic wealthy guy. The moment my career fell apart, "James, Katie and James," I muttered. "Well," Mom remarked defensively, "it's not like it was planned." These things simply occur. These things simply occur." I raised my voice. "My sister and my spouse. And you were aware. You knew all this time. Katie and James fell in love." As if that clarified anything, Dad remarked. "We couldn't really choose a side." Unable to choose a side. I was on the verge of yelling. "Right now." "You definitely choose a side. You removed me from your life. When I had nowhere to go, you refused to assist me. You now dare to come here and seek for my assistance. Be less theatrical." Mom sighed. "For the best, everything turned out. Take a look at yourself. You now own a hotel of your own. Thus, James made the correct decision. Being let go from your previous position, Katie believed that having you work there would be too embarrassing. I gazed at my folks. I was meant to be loved and protected by these folks who had reared me. I noticed them clearly for the first time in that moment, as eager collaborators in ruining my life, not as the parents who had preferred Katie. "Leave now." Silently, I said. "Bella now." Mom got things started. "Leave now!" I let out a yell. "Safety." Immediately, 2 of my security guys showed up. The premises are off limits to certain individuals. My voice trembled with anger as I informed them, "Under no circumstances will they be permitted to return to this hotel. Take them out with you." The guards were already guiding them to the door when you ungrateful little dad started. "You'll regret this," Mom yelled. "You just have your family." "No," I called out to them. "The purpose of family is to love, support, and shield you. You're not related. You are merely people who happen to be my parents." I didn't communicate with my parents via social media or mutual friends after that. I've heard glimpses of what transpired following the catastrophic breakdown of Katie and James's relationship. He threatens to sue her for slander, and she uses social media to vent about him every day, calling him every possible term in the book. My parents had to reduce their home after losing the majority of their retirement funds in a poor investment. My life has taken a fantastic turn in the interim. I met Michael at a convention for the hospitality sector 6 months ago. In addition to being nice and accomplished in his own right, he loves me for who I am rather than what I can offer. Next spring, we will tie the knot. I occasionally look through Katie's irate social media messages late at night about James viewing their filthy laundry and posting it publicly. The cosmic justice of it all makes me chuckle. My sister, who believed she had gained everything by robbing my husband, now shares heartbreaking tales of her life as a single mother on social media every day. James, who believed he had been promoted to the better sister, is seeing his image tarnished. Additionally, they believed they had damaged my sister myself. "I'm doing well. Next year my hotel will open a second site. Michael and I are planning our future together. And most importantly, and finally, free from the poisonous family that never actually loved me." Getting even isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. It involves leading a comfortable life and seeing karma in action from a safe distance, ideally while sipping champagne. Story 3. My family works in retail, and I'm the second kid. My name is Sandra. My parents were constantly on the go, attending different development classes with my elder brother and dashing between work. From my earliest recollections, I was the afterthought. The star of our family show was obvious. Everything was given to my brother first. All the attention is on the newest toys and gadgets. Me? His hand-me-downs came to me. Indeed, that also applied to his attire, which was especially difficult for me as a female who longed to wear something more feminine for once. My grandma was the sole genuine bright light in my early years. The mother of my mother. Every day, she picked me up from school and brought me to her home, saving my life. In contrast to my parents, who were constantly preoccupied with my brother's activities. Grandma genuinely gave a damn about me. "How was your day at school, my love?" As we went home, she would inquire, her eyes sparkling with real curiosity. "Have you discovered anything noteworthy?" While my parents were busy playing Monopoly with my brother, she was the one who attended parent-teacher conferences, checked my schoolwork, and genuinely understood what was going on in my life. I was never a part of their favorite family activity, for whatever reason. I'd be sent out to watch cartoons alone. "Sandra, honey, why don't you go watch TV?" Mom would say every time I wanted to join their game. "You're not familiar with the rules." In our household, things essentially operated like that. Being independent was something I learned early on. Preparing my own meal, tidying my room, and completing my assignments on my own. Not because my parents were awful individuals, their beautiful kid was born just now, and I wasn't the one. I can now, however, understand how those early experiences influenced who I am. My brother was being groomed to become their future business whiz. I was becoming more self-sufficient and independent. I gained self-care skills, discovered my own path, and, above all, realized the importance of having a support system like my grandmother. The day I purchased that superhero comic book, everything changed. Standing in front of the magazine rack, I had been saving my pocket money for weeks, counting every cent until I had enough. I was right when I thought I was going to find a whole new universe. Is it something you really want to spend your money on? The shopkeeper inquired, probably used to children purchasing sweets in its place. I said, holding my priceless acquisition. Yes, I'm sure. I had trouble sleeping that night. The comic book's artwork was captivating. I found myself using my fingers to trace the lines, seeing how the painters used just paper and ink to convey emotion and movement. I picked up some notebook paper and began drawing the following morning. My initial designs were crude stick figures with shaky lines, but I worked on them whenever I could, during lunch breaks, after homework, and even during certain math lectures. My drawings soon began to get better, and then I had an epiphany. What would happen if we made our own superhero? During lunch one day, I recommended someone different from my regular group of pals. Like what? My buddy Lisa inquired, genuinely intrigued. What about a hero that assists homeless animals and youngsters in need? I proposed drawing on my notepad beforehand. Just someone who genuinely cares, without any fancy superpowers. My pals adored it. Together, we got to work on it, brainstorming stories over lunch. We would all give ideas as I drew preliminary drawings. We saw our hero come to life, an ordinary individual who made the decision to change things. During class, our homeroom teacher, Miss Thompson, noticed us sharing our most recent humorous tale. One day, rather than being upset, she requested to see it. I hesitantly handed up our work, fearing detention. "This is amazing, Sandra," she murmured, turning the pages. "For the school newspaper, would you think about doing anything similar?" Before I knew it, our tiny cartoon was appearing in the school paper. In the halls, other kids began approaching me to inquire about the upcoming installment. I was recognized for something I made, not as someone's sister, for the first time in my life. My brother became aware that I was receiving attention. At home, he would grumble, "It's just some stupid drawings," evidently irritated that I was being discussed rather than him. Then came the day of the career. Everyone was asked by Miss Thompson what they hoped to become when they grew up. "A designer," I murmured without thinking as I got to my feet. There was a cheer from the entire class. "It makes perfect sense. Your artwork is fantastic. You would be ideal for it." Miss Thompson gave a kind grin. "With your skill and commitment, that's a great decision, in my opinion." Sandra, I couldn't wait to tell my folks since I was so thrilled. I told them about my dream during dinner that night. A creator. Mom chuckled, glancing at Dad. "That's not a legitimate job path, honey. Dad stated that you must think like an entrepreneur if you want to succeed. Take a look at your brother. He already knows the fundamentals of business. However, I'm not interested in doing business," I objected. "I want to make stuff. Making products won't cover the expenses." Mom waved her hand dismissively at my fantasy. "You must have common sense." Disappointed and hurt, I went to the one individual I knew would be sympathetic. Grandma. Her eyes brightened as I told her about my dreams and showed her my sketches. She gave me a hard embrace and whispered, "My talented girl. Hold on right here." She surprised me the following day with a set of professional paints, an easel, and actual canvases. That wasn't all, though. She transformed her spare room into a dedicated art studio for me after clearing it out. As time passed, my brother received his high school diploma. With all the expected fanfare, my parents threw him a lavish graduation celebration. His entire family, as well as all of his acquaintances, were invited. His announcement of his desire to attend college during dinner, just after the festivities had ended, is still fresh in my mind. Down. With a pleased wave of his acceptance letter, he announced, "I got accepted into the economics program." This family will never have seen a wealthier businessman than me. Just keep an eye on me. Our boy is that. Dad lifted his drink and smiled. "That's what I refer to as future planning. We'll all be proud of you." Mom brushed away tears of joy. "We always knew you were destined for big things." I was in my senior year of high school at the time, dividing my time between creating my art portfolio and attending regular lessons. With its walls covered in paintings and sketches, my tiny workshop at Grandma's had become my haven. Each single creation seemed like a step closer to my goal of becoming a designer. After school, I would concentrate on new projects and hone my skills for hours. I had already been accepted into the local college's design department by the time I graduated. The admissions committee was impressed by my portfolio, but my parents weren't so thrilled. My mother looked at my acceptance letter as if it were a payment she didn't want to pay, and she moaned. "We'll pay for it, I guess, but when you're having trouble finding a job, don't come to us in tears. Degrees in the arts aren't exactly useful." My brother had already graduated and established his own car parts business by the time I enrolled in college. My parents were always discussing it. Every conversation, phone call, and family meal somehow came full circle to his spirit of entrepreneurship. At the time of the explosion, I was just getting used to my college schedule, becoming very involved in my design projects, and forming friendships with creative, like-minded individuals. One day after my design theory session, I was strolling across campus with my portfolio case when my parents unexpectedly came up. "Sandra, we must speak," Mom replied, in a tone that made it obvious that this was no ordinary visit. Over the years, I had come to fear the resolute expression on her face. "You must drop out of college." Dad stood in the center of the campus path and made the announcement without any prelude. "At the supermarket, your brother needs assistance." At first, I assumed they were kidding. "What? You're not serious?" As if this were the most sensible thing in the world, Mom stated that he was spending too much on staff pay. "You may work for free as a sister. The least you can do for your family is this. You've always learned the value of family from us." They outlined their strategy in agonizing detail. I would handle inventory, conduct cold calls, work as a salesperson, and clean the store every night, all without compensation. Naturally, they had obviously considered this, but they had not given any regard to what I desired. "And while I'm working on all of this, what precisely will my brother be doing?" I questioned, my voice trembling with rage. My fists were clenching around my portfolio case, and the squeeze was making my nipples white. Mom's face brightened as though she were telling a very slow child something amazing. "Naturally, he will be in charge of the store. He holds a business degree. Sandra. He is capable at managing things. For this, your brother has studied." I inhaled deeply while attempting to maintain my composure, in spite of the anger that was growing within of me. "I'm not going to quit. I have previously completed an internship with David's design studio, and they have made references to a post-graduation employment. As a designer, that's what I want to do. In fact, they claim to have never had an intern, with my degree of originality." Mom's chuckle was like a dagger piercing the air. Students in the vicinity turned to stare since it was so loud. Some of them are looking at me empathetically. "You wish to work for someone else's uncle, honey? Work for someone. We are providing you with a genuine future and a family business. How many people would murder for this chance, do you know?" "Please, Mom," I begged, choking back tears. My hands were full with work I put my all into, and my portfolio felt weighty. I have no desire to work in sales. I have no desire to manage a business. I'd want to sketch. I'd want to make something. I do it well. According to my instructors, I possess genuine talent. I could even have a legitimate career in this profession, according to Professor Jenkins. Bills are not paid by talent. Mom's face hardened and she snapped. "However, you're being obstinate about this." After adjusting her jacket, she faced her father. "Right now, we're heading to the administration office. We will inform them that we are withdrawing our tuition payment and that you are no longer a student here." My heart stopped beating. The globe appeared to slant to one side. "Please don't do this, parents. For once, please listen to me. We're discussing my future here." "There is nothing to talk about," Mom remarked icily. "We will either cease funding your hobbies or you will come work at the store. You need to confront reality and grow up." As I watched through my tears, I saw my parents' figures shrink as they left to ruin my future. As the fall leaves vanished within the structure, they whirled about them. After 45 minutes, they came out looking happy. With victorious smiles on their faces, they approached me after noticing that I was still seated on the bench. "Well," Mom said cheerfully, "that's taken care of. We have stopped the tuition payments and signed the withdrawal documents. Officially, You are no longer enrolled here. Beginning the next semester, it's time to get home and pack up your belongings. Like he was telling me about a surprise party, Dad continued. On Monday morning, your brother wants you at the store. Sandra, welcome to the real world. Mom patted my shoulder and murmured, I promise that when you reflect on this day, you'll see that we were kind to you. Let's head home now. There's a lot of packing for you. They turned and went, leaving me sitting there with trembling hands, my now worthless portfolio, and crushed hopes. I took out my phone and gave the one person who had always been there for me a call. Grandma. Into the phone I wept. I'm being forced to drop out of college. Slow down, my love. They went to the administration. Her voice was calm. Tell me everything. Through tears. I described the circumstances. The shop. My brother's needs. My parents' demand. Everything. Grandma listened silently, only letting out little sighs of disapproval here and there. Don't bring anything, she stated firmly. Once I was done, tomorrow I'll be down there. This is the end of this nonsense. You simply concentrate on your academics. Grandma showed up 3 days later as promised. She took me to the administrative building, but I did not accompany her. I was very anxious. However, she was grinning when she emerged 2 hours later. Everything is taken care of, she declared. I covered the remainder of your schooling. You're remaining exactly where you should be. I feared I could break something when I gave her such a strong embrace. Many thanks for everything. The peace lasted precisely 6 hours. And during this time, Granny spent time with me. That's when Mom phoned her. Dare you meddle? From the other side of the room, I could hear my mother's yelling voice on the phone. You have nothing to do with this. Grandma rolled her eyes and held the phone away from her ear. When you attempted to ruin your daughter's future, it became my concern. Grandma just hung up after the ranting went on for a few minutes. My phone then began to ring. If you don't realize your mistake now. Mom spoke in a chilly tone. You may say that you are disinherited. Do you want it that way? To toss away your family for some art classes? With my hands solid for the first time in days, I inhaled deeply. Mom, I'm remaining in college. I apologize, but I must go my own way. Then you are not my daughter. The line died. I noticed the Facebook post 1 hour later. Heartbroken. In our moment of need, our own daughter has deserted her family. She has put her own interests ahead of her family's devotion. Please offer up prayers for us at this trying time. Sarah wrote when the comment section erupted. She was always an ungrateful child, and I knew it. Let the girl follow her dreams, Uncle Jim retorted. My high school classmate Emma supported my freedom to choose my own career, while Cousin Rachel added that I had family responsibilities. I read remark after comment while I sat on my bed. I'm feeling quite nauseous. There, Grandma discovered me. I'm still looking over the responses. She took away my phone and forcefully stated, Stop reading that garbage. What do you know? I've decided on something. I'm altering my mind. I'm giving you all I own. Startled, I raised my head. Grandma. No, you are not required to. I do, indeed. She cut me off. I've spent enough time observing your brother and parents. In a month, they would deplete my whole life savings on yet another ill-conceived business plan. But you, my face remained in her hands. You are incredibly talented and motivated. You're going to achieve success. People might be proven right or incorrect in a humorous way by life. Grandma contacted me in the middle of my last year of college to share the news about my brother's shop. It's closing down, she added, attempting to avoid saying, I told you so. The numbers didn't add up for your sibling. What took place? Even though I had a very solid notion beforehand, I inquired. The same old tale. More money is leaving than entering. Here's the worst part, though. For dramatic effect, she waited. Already, he has another great business idea. A week later, my brother's Facebook status was filled with delight, as expected. I'm excited to share the news of my latest endeavor, Ink Master Studios, which I opened with my friend Mike, the town's best tattoo parlor. Soon, entrepreneur, proprietor of a business, achievement. He had always made fun of my artistic endeavors, and I couldn't help but note that he had used the artist emoji. Grandma kept me informed about the drama in the family. Using their remaining equity, your parents took out another loan. At one of our monthly dinners, she informed me. This tattoo shop scam is currently being funded. Is it not unbelievable that you have a second mortgage? A large, lavish launch party was held to kick off the tattoo business. Every day, my brother sent pictures of their opulent home, far too large for a startup company. He did, however, always believe that greater was better. Professional-looking pictures of the pricey furnishings and top-of-the-line equipment were all over their social media accounts. The post, however, began to change after that. An increasing number of them included promotional work and free tattoos for influencers. Grandma made a snort in reference to attractive females that caught my brothers or my ex. The tattoo parlor closed down after precisely 1 year. Overhead is excessive. There are too many freebies and not enough paying clients. There was no social media fanfare when the going out of business sign was up. At the same time, my life was changing drastically. My final portfolio was stronger than I could have ever dreamed when I entered college, and I finished with honors. I finally received the call I had been waiting for the day after graduation. Sarah, the creative director of Davidson Design Studio, expressed her desire for you to become a member of their team. Your current portfolio and the job you did throughout your internship were outstanding. Let's just say that allowing you to go somewhere else would be insane. For a starting position, the pay they gave was higher than what I had anticipated. I had located a modest yet quaint apartment of my own within a month. It was a simple one-bedroom studio with plenty of natural light for my art. It was mine, though. I save a percentage of my earnings each time I am paid. I was resolved to create a safe future for myself after witnessing the financial turmoil in my family. The customer gave my first major assignment at the Business Excellent ratings, and I could see my reputation as a professional was rising. Grandma responded, "See?" when I showed her my very first large-scale customer presentation. When you pursue your skill and don't waver, this is what occurs. At last, the house of cards my parents had constructed collapsed. When my brother's business endeavors failed, they were unable to repay 2 business loans that were secured by their home. Grandma told me they were selling the house. Even after selling the property, they were still in debt when we spoke on our weekly conversations. Everything else was sold: Mom's priceless collection of antiques, Dad's golf clubs, which he adored. They even match Mom's high-end purses and fancy automobiles. She had taken great pride in the actual store. Occurred after my brother declared his intention to go to Arizona. Unable to assist with the loans, he informed them. Not in my name, but in yours. I require a new beginning. One Sunday afternoon, when I was helping my grandmother tidy her craft room, a moving truck arrived outside through the window. I was shocked to see my parents getting out of their now antiquated Toyota, which was their last remaining car. Mom said, "We're here," as we entered Grandma's front door without knocking. "What should we do with our belongings?" Grandma crossed her arms as she stood in her hallway. "Furthermore, why do you believe you're moving in?" Dad, who was already guiding movers with their boxes, answered, "Of course. There is nowhere else for us to go." "Oh, really?" Grandma could have chilled hell with her voice. "Who said you were allowed to reside here?" Mom appeared astonished. "Where's your family, Mom? We can't be turned away. Those debts caused us to lose everything." "You're referring to the loans you took out due to financial strain? Son's half-baked plans." Grandma raised an eyebrow. "You were left to your debt by the same son," Mother remarked, raising her chin. "It makes no difference. Your only daughter is me. In any case, I will inherit this house. We may as well move in right away." Grandma laughed coldly and sharply. "Do you believe that? Now let me explain something to you. Sandra will receive every dime I own and every stone in this mansion. I've observed your financial management. In a few months, you and your son would deplete my life savings." As Mom took in what Grandma had said, her face twisted in anger. Then she turned on me, accusingly pointing with her finger. She spat. "Didn't you plan this out beforehand, disenfranchising my own mother? Like any other robber, stealing my inheritance." In spite of her rage, I stood there feeling oddly at ease. This would have made me cry years ago. However, it is no longer the case. "You have to go, Mom. Go." She let out a cry. "Here you act as like you already own this land. Who are you, in your opinion? In your grandmother's home? Issuing commands?" Now Mom was having a good time. Years of bitterness leaking forth. "You are such a petty snake. You first left the family company. After that, you made my mother oppose me. And you're standing there now, acting superior to us." I said, "Please go, Mom. You're not welcome here. And this isn't your home." "Not welcome." She burst out laughing. "Her daughter is me, her sole child. You're also just..." Before she was done. Walking ahead, Grandma put her arm around my shoulders. She stated strongly that she is the only one who has ever felt completely at home here. The only person who valued this home more than its market worth. The only one who, rather of using plans and expectations, filled it with delight and inventiveness. "Now leave my house, you two, and take your boxes with you." They didn't go quietly. Until the very end, Dad tried to bargain, as Mom ranted and shouted all the way down the driveway. Grandma and I watched them load their boxes back into the truck while we stood in the doorway. 3 years have passed since then. As is often the case, life has gone on. I continue to work at Davidson Design Studio, where I was elevated to lead designer on a number of significant projects. Rebranding a nationwide coffee business was my most recent job, and it recently took home an industry award. Since that day at Grandma's house, I haven't talked to either my brother or my parents. On social media, I occasionally come across posts from my brother. Every time he launches a new business, he says it will be his big break. Grandma and I have only gotten closer, even though I know from family rumors that my parents live in a little apartment across town. I contributed a portion of my funds to her home's renovation last month. I created everything myself, including fresh color palettes, original wall art, and even some one-of-a-kind furniture that I commissioned from regional craftspeople. Grandma enjoys flaunting it to her pals. All of this was done by my granddaughter. Everyone who comes over hears it from her. Everything was her own creation. She did an amazing job, didn't she? I occasionally sit in the kitchen, where I used to do my schoolwork after school, and listen to her proudly giving tours when she has meetings for her garden society or bridge club. Every time I see it, I grin. She looked to me yesterday with a sparkle in her eye as we sat on her recently renovated back porch, sipping tea and taking in the sunset. "Do you know what my finest investment to yet has been?" she inquired. "What is that? Do you have to pay for college?" Squeezing my hand, she said, "Some choose to invest in real estate or equities. I put money into your aspirations, and look at how successful that was." I was unable to dispute that. I felt totally at peace with all of my decisions as I gazed about at the lovely place we've made together.